Hey everybody, welcome back to another Nature's Always Right video. Today I'm here with Michael Kilpatrick of In the Field Media. And he is somebody I've learned a lot of different techniques from, especially my post-harvest station, my salad spinner. You guys have seen how I built the salad spinner and greens bubble. I learned all that from him. He even has a course all about how to set that up. I'll put a link to the description for his courses, so if you guys want to learn how to do that, you can do it too. So Michael, thank you so much for joining us here.
Hey, thank you for having me, and thank you for we've had a couple hours here.
Yeah.
I love geeking out on farming.
Yes, me too. I love
so much
having
fun.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. I learned a lot already. A lot of different things you helped me with my farm. So thank you.
Oh. What I can do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So your business right now is In the Field Media, formerly In the Field Consultants. You do consulting like all over the country, even the world even. And so before we get into kind of like the business that you do, I wanted to know, how did you get into farming and what's your experience with it?
Yeah, so long time ago, we had a backyard garden and I loved it. In the first year we planted carrots, and after 7 days they didn't germinate, so we tilled them under and planted something else, and then 4 days later they popped up. Oh, wow. So I knew nothing, okay? Yeah. Fast forward 2004, 2005, my brother and I decided we wanted to start farming. We were upstate New York at this time. Okay. We started a farm in our front yard. We grew that thing over 8 years to about, we were managing 500 acres total, about 350 acres of woodlot, 100 acres of pasture, and then 50 acres of tillable ground. Huge. Wow. We had 5-6 tractors. We had, all sorts of equipment. We had 20 employees. We had 4 farmers markets. We were growing for storage between about 50 tons of root crops every single year. So yeah, it was a sizable farm, multiple 100-member CSA. But it started in our backyard. It was nothing. We hired our friends. Yeah, we didn't know what we were doing. We made so many mistakes. Yeah,
don't you guys love hearing that? Started in his backyard, didn't know what he was doing. I love meeting people that are now experts in the field and hearing their backstory, because it just inspires me, and I hope it inspires you guys to know that we all start somewhere. And knowing what Michael's doing now, it's just so cool to hear that beginning. Yeah. Yeah.
I made every mistake in the book.
Yes.
Probably twice.
Yeah, but then we learn and we get better, and that's awesome. Yeah. So, I learned about you through Curtis Stone's video, where you guys it's an old video, but where you were setting up the salad spinner. And then I was like, whoa, that's such a cool idea. I got to do that for my farm. And I ended up buying your course, learned all about it. And so yeah, I felt similar to you, and like I could tell you geek out on all this stuff and trying to make things really efficient, and and trying to invent things, and so I relate to you in that way a lot, because I'm into that too.
Yeah. Well, I think what it is there's so many systems in small farming, and one of the things I bring up is there's so much innovation that can happen, but until farmers are really looking at it as a business and being able to show investors there's money in our industry, we're not going to attract the investment for these innovations. So, and we're going to try as hard as we can to figure stuff out. Like right now, our current project is LED lighting for farmers. Okay. So being able to show farmers how to do all that inside, because in most of the areas of the country, it's so expensive to put up a production greenhouse for that, unless you're at a certain scale. Then it becomes very cheap. But for that certain size, LEDs are actually a hugely effective and efficient thing. So interesting. All I'm doing right now is I'm going out there and getting all the research that's out there. I'm starting to put it in my head and start to think about it, starting to crunch it, and then starting to mess with it and play with it. And like, I have a lot of money in my basement right now.
Oh, cool.
But it's like that stuff that, yeah, you're right, geeking out about it, trying to see how can I make this more efficient, better for farmers, and the magic of Alibaba, and being able to source stuff directly from China. Right. It's so cool.
It is cool. So that's where your business, I guess, is going now. It's lots of research, developing different products for farmers, and also education as well. Could you kind of speak to us kind of about your vision of how the company's changing and where it's going?
Yeah. So we started out as In the Field Consultants. Yes. Now we're like technically In the Field Media, because we are a media company. We produce content, online courses, we have membership, but we're actually moving to a new, which is coming soon, Growing Farmers as a brand. Okay. Because what we want is, we started very niche, but our goal is to teach as many farms and in many different areas as possible how farming can work. And a part of that is the kind of the big thing we teach is farming is a business.
Yes.
If it's not a business, it's a hobby, and treat it like a hobby and do all the heck fun stuff you want to do. That's completely, totally fine. But if you want the farm and you want to make it work, it needs to be run like a business. And so that's what we teach. The kind of the premise of what we teach is the top of it is we have what we call 5 basically not step system, but 5 pillars that we teach is called ripen. And the R stands for routine, innovation, production mastery, engine, and then the last one is needs of the customers, which is marketing. So those are the 5 areas that we work on, and then when we work with any farm, we always reference back to that framework. And because when we have problems on farms, it's always in one of those 5 areas.
I see, yeah.
If someone can't get production mastery is what they need to work on. Sales, needs of the customers. Building their team, it's the engine. And the systems all around that. Mainly we see a lot of people struggle, the biggest thing they struggle with as they start to scale is the engine. The biggest thing they struggle with at the beginning is usually the production mastery. The other thing they scale at a later point is usually the marketing, because now they can produce the product, now they just can't sell it. And all the way through, they're always struggling with the routine, which is building themselves as a farmer, which is also a businessman, an entrepreneur, a leader. There's so many things, time management, there's so many things right there.
Yeah, I always talk about how I think that farming is probably one of the most complex businesses out there, you know.
Absolutely.
Especially if you're the farmer, you got to know all about biology, the plants, seeding, then all the business aspects of sales and marketing, and there's so many things. It's unbelievable. Now we got to have websites. Now you got to have an Instagram. Now you got, I mean, it's infinite the amount of things a farmer must know how to do now. And
if you're a farmer, I absolutely salute you, because you guys are rocking it. Because as you said, there's nothing more complex.
It's so complex.
You have to have a dozen hats in even the first hour of your day.
Yeah, I know.
It's challenging.
It is. Oh, so I guess I just wanted to ask you, because I love the washing machine design. How did you come up with that idea, and how that kind of developed? Because it's so awesome. Like, I built my washer for $50.
Yeah.
And now it's it saved me so much time and money.
Yeah. So when we were farming, we had one that was just an old Kenmore, and we were just pulling the thing and running it that way. Yeah.
His is so much better. It's actually safe.
Yes. And so we were doing that, and then we heard some people that were actually converting the mechanics of it and the electrical system. Because that's the main thing you have to hack is the electrical system. Everything else we do is just really cosmetics. We have lids on it now and stop switches and stuff. So we found someone else was doing it, and we talked to them about it. Over the phone, they kind of told us what they were doing, and then we worked with somebody else, and they were kind of hacking older styles, but we wanted to hack the newer styles. And really, it was kind of, again, as I said earlier, it was looking at what all these little things people were doing, and then taking a little bit of our own, we could do this and this and this, and then putting it all together and kind of making the best practices of all of that. So I never say I invented it.
Yeah.
But I kind of went out there and got all the cool things from all the other people were doing, and put a little twist on it. And says, well, so Chris Callahan, who we've had on the podcast episode with the food safety, he's an ag engineer. And he said, well, Michael, you should put a stop switch. It's like, okay, gotta go find a stop switch, figure out how to wire that in. And now it's a system. I don't think it's finished. There's other people that are going to take it further than I am, and that's awesome. But I think it's just. I think it works for people. I mean, we have hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people all over the U.S. and around the world now doing it. Yeah. And so cool. I'm, just excited that I'm saving farmers time and money. Yep. And a $3,000. This replaces a $3,000 machine. Yeah, that one machine, I've seen it. Other farmers use it. It's very expensive, but it works perfectly. So I love it. Yeah, thank you for sharing your knowledge with everybody. Well, and then it's just. The bubble washer. Again, it was something else that other people had done, but as then I started messing with it and doing research and realized that if you put the bubbles on one side, you can get a cyclical bubbling. Yeah, right. And that actually, what it does is it mixes it and it pulls the dirt off faster. Oh. So you just put the bubbles on one side? So that's the... Mine go all the way around the toe like this. Yeah, so you can do two. So if you have a wider one, you can do it on both sides and it creates two like this. Oh, So I think that's, you can do that. But if you have a really narrow one, we'll just put it on one side and then it makes a circular motion. Neat, yes. And helps mix it and all that kind of stuff. Love it, yeah, it's another one. Someone else was doing it, and we're saying, you know, how can we make it easier and faster and better? Because here's the thing. With all these tutorials we put together, you can find the same information for free on the internet.
Yeah, absolutely.
But all we've done is try to make it easier and faster and give you every single little step through there. So yeah, people say, why are you charging for it? Well, I spent a lot of time putting it together.
Yes.
But if you want, go get it for free online.
Yeah. So like Michael's version of it is like the professional version. Like if, you know, I think it's even, have you had the GAP certifiers come through and check it out?
We've argued on that. Technically, yes, so you can GAP certify it.
Yeah.
We have people GAP certifying it.
Yeah.
Are they happy to certify it? No.
Yeah. Well, hey, that's cool. At least they got it through. Then that's...
Yes.
That's
yeah, so we
important.
have a farm in Massachusetts that has 4 of these lined up, and they're
Nice.
doing 1,500 pounds a week.
Wow.
Oh, yeah.
That's awesome. That's
Crazy.
so cool. They're pretty reliable, too.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
Very
another great
reliable.
thing about it.
Yeah,
Very
unless you
cool.
wire it wrong.
Yeah, uh-oh.
And then they'll fall apart, or, you know, something will, yeah. But otherwise, they last a long time.
Very cool. So I wanted to ask you, you know, you've been in farming for quite a long time now, especially, you know, I want to ask you more about the market gardening and the small farming movement. You know, I started getting involved in this about 8 years ago, and now I've seen it just explode in popularity. What do you think about that? What's going on right now?
Yeah.
Do you agree? Is there a rise in popularity? Obviously, it's pretty small compared to the larger ag scene, but...
Well, I mean, I think we're overall looking at a decline of farming in the U.S., farmers in the U.S. And that's happening because larger farms keep consolidating because there's no money in farming, and so now the corporations are getting into farming because they can run the numbers.
Right.
So then what we do have is a resurgence of the very small farm.
Yeah.
And that's happening because obviously there's people who've been popularizing on YouTube, and there's new books out about it, which is awesome.
Yeah.
And I mean, when I started farming, we didn't have half the books.
Nothing.
We did not have YouTube.
No.
We didn't even really have Facebook.
Yeah, right.
So, I mean, the farmers today, they have it, they're incredibly lucky that they've got, I mean, they have for a couple $1,000, they can get very well set up to farm. Now, nothing replaces experience. And so I was just had on the podcast Daniel Brisbra, and he's been farming in Quebec for 10, 15 years. And one of the things we were both talking about on the podcast episode was nothing replaces those 5 to 10 years of experience of being able to look at a beet leaf and say, yeah, that actually needs some nitrogen. And so, so there's that, but obviously they're so lucky today to have all this information out there. So you can get 80% of the way there, which is great. And I know people that 2 years in are doing 100K easily because they've been able to follow the systems and all the setup which has happened out there.
The models, and now the tools too. Like we got the Greens Harbor, the paper pot transplanter, the Jong seeder.
Yes.
All these great trays now. I mean, it's very
it's
exciting.
incredible.
Yeah.
It's incredible what's available. So yeah, there's a rise in that. Now, do I think it's completely sustainable? Well, I mean, the fact that 95 businesses fail in the first 5 years stays across farming too.
Right.
So, and it will come back to it, is that if you don't focus on building the business, you're never going to have a successful farm.
Yeah.
Because you're going to constantly just be making the same mistakes over and over. And if you don't worry about your finances and you run out of cash, the number one reason businesses fail, lack of cash flow. So, you know, if you don't do that, then obviously you're going to fail. But again, as I said, I think it's an incredibly awesome time to be a farmer.
I totally agree, man. Yeah, it's so fun having so many people, especially young people, will contact me or message me on Instagram, like, you know, check out my small plot in my backyard. I'm I'm doing it, and I just cheer them on, and I'm so excited for all these people to go for it. And then people are, a lot of people, they get out of college and they're working a job. They're making good money, but they're just not satisfied. They're not. It's not being fulfilled.
Well, I think we have to look at too the millennial workforce too, and the millennial workforce is all about the experience. So it's no longer the aspect of, and I think I'm the exact age group for that, and I exhibit it because I didn't last. I had 4 jobs in 2 years.
Wow.
After I did my 10 years of farming, then I kind of we moved on, and so like boom, I could not last at a job. It's just, but what we're looking at is this workforce is really changing, and they want something fulfilling, and so this is aspect of that. And the other thing I'll say about this too is, there's no one right or wrong way to farming. So if you're doing in your backyard, you have 2 10-foot beds. That's awesome. Hats off to you. Go crush it and keep doing it. And it doesn't have to make money at the first start. I mean, obviously, if you turn it into a business, I want you to see it make it money for you. But experiment, try it out, get started. feed your community, create community with that, and that's what I want that to see is teaching more people in your community about farming. Because yeah, the postage stamps farms aren't really necessarily going to feed the world, but they are going to be that first step. So many people stake to eat healthy, to learn what a good ecology is, what regenerative is, and what they can be doing differently with their life. There's so many people that their first step was working with a neighbor eating a sun-ripened tomato, and that was their journey to healthier living, to recycling, to all of this. So that's why I'm so excited this movement is exploding. Not that and I think we can feed the world. Small farms, I mean, the UN did say small farms are the key to feeding the world. So yes, there's that aspect. It's going to take longer than we would like it to, but it's that first step. And that first step is so important because that's what's going to change the world.
Yeah, I agree. For me, that's why I love promoting small farming, is because of the effect that it has on the individual themselves, giving them more freedom, and then it spreads out into the community, waking so many people up to like, oh wow, like this tomato has flavor. What am I eating at the grocery store? That was a big epiphany for me when I first started farming. It was like, my first little garden, I'm growing things that taste 10 times better than the grocery store. Wait, so how is that possible? I don't know anything about this yet. How am I able to do this? There's something missing, something wrong going on. And then you go down the rabbit hole. And
oh yeah, I mean, like for us when we were farming, people would come up to us and say, our kids actually now eat carrots.
Yes,
and spinach,
yes, same. My customers too. My customers too.
And the other thing is too. So you're now influencing the next generation.
Yes.
And so here's the thing: they're going to go to the grocery store. Oh, this is awful, and then they're like, wait a minute, my parents got that from the farmers market. Boom, back to the farmers market they go. Yeah.
That's
so
cool.
that's the other super cool aspect is just knowing that you're influencing the next generation.
Big time. Yeah, I love that. I love bringing kids over here and showing them, or I try to interact with the kids at the farmers market because I want them to have that positive experience, and it just stays with them. So kind of touching off of that, now where do you see the future of agriculture going? What is sort of your vision of where it's going to go? I mean, big ag is kind of, seems like it's always going to be with us.
Yeah.
But can we reduce chemical farming? If we don't have 10 million small farmers, then we can't really feed that many people. So
well, I think the other thing too is we're seeing an incredible rise in small scale tech and small farm tech too, on the aspect of the technology. So the one thing that we were talking earlier about, now they're using electronic eyes to reduce spraying, so they're using 90% less chemicals. I want to see 0 chemicals used, but I'm happy to start with 90% less, which is awesome. And they're saying it pays for the technology in 18 months on these 10,000 acre farms, which is absolutely amazing. So we're seeing that, which is awesome. We're also seeing the rise of just education too, so we're seeing that happening too. So more people are being open to the eyes of it. We're seeing Monsanto failing massively in courts, which is awesome. People waking up. 13 countries now have banned Roundup or are phasing Roundup out. GMOs are on the decline in certain countries. Like India has gone so far back to using their indigenous varieties because the Roundup ready ones didn't work.
Yeah, and they were committing suicide in the thousands in India. It's a horrible story, but
because they were putting all their life savings into supposedly these things that were going to be the magic bullet, them not working because they didn't have the drought resistance, and then losing their land. So it's a crime, and it is. It's now being shown that it's a crime, and they're failing massively, which is awesome. So we're also seeing the rise too of, even to the federal level, the USDA is saying, hey, we don't have enough farmers. We need to have more innovation in and helping young farmers. So they're actually putting money towards that, which is awesome. They're also, actually, Ray Archuleta, who's the soil guy, he finally ended up retiring because, as he told me himself, I couldn't say what I wanted to say. So now he can say what he wants to say.
That's important.
And he is going across the nation, him and Gabe Brown and these other people have started this company to teach farmers how to regenerate the soil. And it's awesome because they're doing it on massive scale. And so that's the other thing that I'm super excited about. One of the reasons we are looking excited about the future of our company is we know that we can help these guys take their message to the masses.
Exactly.
And so through digital marketing, through the web, it's so easy to reach people.
Yes.
And so that's why we're so excited about the day we live in, and being able to take this and being able to help these guys bring that message. And I mean, again, when this happens, there's so many other industries that are going to benefit. The cottage food industries. cover crop seeding, new farm tech. There's going to need to be new technology built to make these seeders and stuff they're going for. Tillmore, I'm so excited about them with the walk-behind tractors for cultivation. That's huge. Ryan Thiessen, who's out of Canada now, he's now making all the tooling for that. That's another business that's exploded. So these are obviously for scale, probably 2 acres up for walk-behind weeding and stuff like that. But it's so cool because before we were jerry-rigging these old tractors, you know, and they were constantly failing on us. And now we've got purpose-built machining that's, you turn out there, it's got a not as reliable as Honda, but it's a Briggs & Stratton engine.
Nice.
2-pole instead of 1-pole.
There you go.
You can tell I geek out on this kind of stuff. But so I'm so excited the age we live in, what's happening, our role in just helping take this information to the masses and being able to bring that message of farm business out there as well.
Yeah, so cool, man, I guess. So something cool about Michael's story is that he was an intern for Joel Salatin, right? Yes. And, you know, Joel Salatin's one of my heroes in farming, as many of us, I'm sure. So what was it like to be at his farm and work for him?
Yeah.
And what was that?
Yeah, so I was actually, Joel's the reason I got into farming.
Oh, wow.
Because I read the Smithsonian article about his farm. I think it was 2001 maybe it came out. And at that point, we were told, our grandparents, our parents, oh, you can't make money farming.
Right.
My parents were more than happy for me to do whatever the heck I wanted. So they were more than happy to support it. But they were like, okay, you know, there's a reason people don't farm. So Joel was like, oh my gosh, you can do this and you can do it healthy and you can like do it regeneratively. So like all the boxes we're ticking, we were super excited about. We started with animals. We rapidly got out of that because we weren't at the scale. Animals do make money. It's hard to make money at animals. You have to be at a certain scale. But so then we started farming in 2012. I kind of reached, I was 25 or 24. I reached my quarter life crisis. And I was like, well, there's two things. One, I was getting a little bored of our farm. We've been doing it for like 7 or 8 years now. Two, I saw how our vegetable farming was so hard on the soil. And I was like, regenerative farming that I kind of got excited about was not the farming I was doing. I mean, yes, we were organic. We even went certified. And we were using lots of cover crops and compost and all of that. But I wanted to close that loop. I think so many of us do. We think about sustainability and we want to see how close we can get that loop. And so I was like, Polyface is doing it. What better piece to learn from? I've read all his books. I probably can hack the application program because it's harder to get into Polyface than internship than it is into Yale. I mean, you can't pay your way into Polyface is what I'm saying.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, they get thousands of applicants every year.
So, you know, I didn't even tell my family I was going. I did it on a way back from a trip. I got the letter, I got the email, I went and I checked out. They said I was in when I scampered up a tree to, when they were trying to cut down a tree, I scampered it up at the tire rope so they could pull in the right direction. They're like, he's in.
There you go.
Yes, there's a skill I learned when I was 6 that actually paid off once.
That's so funny.
But yeah, so I showed up and it was, there's a couple things. One, it was incredibly interesting. I learned a lot. Two, I was frustrated because I was used to running people and there I was now at the bottom of the pecking order.
That's an interesting way to do it. Usually you'd go when you're 18 or something and be an intern. But
so this was when I was 25. I already had a crew of 15 at that point that I was running, that we multiple crews and all of this. And the thing about animal farming is it's incredibly different than vegetable farming. Vegetable farming is very hands-on, very intensive. You're out there chopping lettuce and tilling and all this stuff. So like chop, 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 chop. Animal farming is a lot more laid back. Yes, there's aspects where you're butchering chickens and you have to be very fast. And I do want to say that I hit the benchmark for pulling pens and for butchering chickens, which I think like only a quarter interns hit. But again, I was already been doing it, so I had to,
you had those hand skills.
Yes,
to do
exactly, because especially with picking spinach, you know, you
right.
get those hand skills. So yeah, it was great. One of the things I enjoy doing is they let me help them write SOPs for their farm. So like they still have SOPs. I don't know if they still use them, but when I was there a couple years ago, they were handing out like their egg collecting, their chicken pulling. I helped them write those up, which was a fun thing to do. And I got to run the sawmill too, which was fun for me too. So that was really cool. And the thing really too was interesting was just the whole dynamic of, they're running like 6 to 8 different, maybe 10 now different farms. So they're managing a massive kind of conglomerate of all of this. And the one thing about Joel is his incessant optimism. Is, you know, there may be like, when we were there the year, they had a Durango come through, which was like straight line winds, flipped every single chicken pen. They lost thousands of chickens. It was awful. I happened to be gone for that weekend, so I ended up calling Joel. I was like, hey, do you need me to come back right away? And he's like, nope, wait till Monday, just be there, ready to go. But, you know, Joel's like, looking at the bright side of this. And Joel, like, the days after, like, okay, guys, what can we learn from this? And like, okay, we need to do this, we need to do this, we need to do this. And then, like, a couple months later, he used that whole experience to write another article for Stockman Grass Farmer. So if you go back...
He's amazing.
Yeah.
He's so inspiring.
So now, you know, now he's the editor of that, which is fabulous. Yeah, I mean, if you want to learn about the animal side of things, Stockman Grass Farmer is a fabulous read. Now, the old episodes when Alan Nation was writing the editorials, I mean, Joel will even say, like, chills up and down your spine by just reading Alan's words and seeing how he'll take an article and he'll start in 6 different places, and you're like, why the heck is he talking about these? At the end, he ties it up in a neat little bow, and you're like, oh my gosh, mind blown. That's kind of a little tangent there, but you know, Joel's just that whole aspect of the ecosystem, and seeing, you know, one of the things too is Polyface runs a very particular model. You got your long-term full-time employees, and then you bring on 12 new green interns every year. That takes a lot of guts, because those first couple months, those interns are not going to, you know...
They're making mistakes.
Massive mistakes. Yeah. And so this is what we call learning on someone else's dime.
Right.
So we absolutely agree that there should be that level of internship and apprenticeship, that most people should do that before they start farming.
Yeah, I agree.
But I will strongly say most farms should not have interns or apprentices. That they need to be 5-6 years in so they can actually have something to teach. Now, if you want to come and just learn, that's fine, go for it. But I don't think you should really call it an apprenticeship or an internship at that point. So there's a lot of guts in that. And you know, some of us have the impression, I still probably would never have an intern or apprentice, because what I want on my farm is I want what you know, Jordan Green, I think, who's actually an apprentice for Polyface and now a zone farm in Northern Virginia, and is crushing it. Wow. The guy is online sales too. They are all over the nation. He calls pro employees, where you have an employee, you get the right people, you cycle through a lot, you get the right person, and then you incentivize the heck out of them so they stay. Because you want a long-term employee that's going to make this a lifetime. Because there's so many little things as farming. Farming is so complicated that you want the pro employee that's going to stay a long time and just going to get it. And they'll walk by a greenhouse and say, wait a minute, that's supposed to be open. Yeah. Or, oh my gosh, that needs watered. Where a new employee, maybe 6 months in,
don't see it.
Not going to see it.
Yeah.
So that's why, you know, Jordan and I are like, we want pro employees. So it's a lot of kudos to Polyface for having those interns and apprentices, because they're training the next generation of farmers. And you know, a lot of people who go there and interns and apprentices, I feel like they complain about the experience, like, oh, they didn't teach as much as I wanted. Polyface is doing you a service by letting you come at all. Yeah. They're losing massive money for this. They could cut their employees by probably less than half, pro employees, and just be done. Yeah. And you know, I know like that aspect of, because my brother actually interned and then he apprenticed there. And you know, like when the winter happens, they're just the apprentices and the pro employees. It runs so seamlessly and so smoothly. Wow, cool. So yeah, I mean, I learned a lot from Polyface. I also learned that, of course, the aspect of animals, and I learned that we probably did not want to add that to our farm at that point. Now, because we made our money on vegetables, 95% of our income. We did some chickens, we did some turkeys, we did some eggs. But because that 95%, that was where our time, that was where our focus, and that was where our energy was put, not on those animals. So we didn't do the animals well. So this is where I see a lot of farms fail, is they try to do everything. And when you try to do everything, you can't do anything well. Right. And so, you know, you really need to specialize. I see animals and vegetables working together really well when you have like managers of each. Let's say you have one employee that loves animals, that's all they do. One animal that loves vegetables, or one person that loves vegetables, and that's all they do. Right. The other thing that really struggles too, and this is something that's come up really recently, very depth, is that animals and vegetables from a food safety point do not mix. Yeah. To the point that it's, you know, because I've done now, so I worked on a food safety project with UVM of Vermont. They hired me as like the consultant for this project, and what we did is like a year-long project and looked at like record-keeping software for farms. We found there was really none out there, so we ended up working with a developer to build some onto an existing farm platform, and it's Farm OS. Nice. So you can put that as a resource. Nice. Yeah. We built a whole food safety module for most of your listeners here. Most farmers, we're never going to be affected by it because of you have to be a certain size before it really comes into effect.
Okay.
But farmers should still pay attention to it because you don't want to make your customers sick.
Of course.
But going back to this whole thing of the mixing is what we like to see is if you're going to be an animal farmer, you do the animal chores, then let's say you go into breakfast, do a clothes change, and then you go do your vegetables.
I see.
You want to break that cycle. If you're having a tractor that's going to do vegetables, you want to keep that away from the animals because what you're doing, you drive in there, you get manure on your tires, and you drive into your vegetable field. Now you've inoculated your entire vegetable field with E. coli. So there's all these things that when you try to mix them, and I mean, I love the mixing because I love the symbolism and the symbiosis, what's the word I'm looking for?
Symbiosis?
Thank you, yes. Symbiosis there. And I think a lot of because I'm not federally paid, I can say this, food safety is completely overblown.
Oh yeah, big time.
Oh yeah. Agree. But I also realize because so many of the people in the U.S. do not have well-developed gut flora.
Yeah, great point.
Anything will send them over the edge and can make them sick.
Totally.
So if we had a completely healthy immune system, who would care if the kids were sitting in puddles that had manure in them?
Yeah.
They would be completely fine.
Yeah.
But because we're so fragile, anything can throw us over the edge. That's why we really have to be careful about
That's
this.
cool. I'm glad you think that way. I feel the same way about it as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. If our immune systems were stronger, these E. coli outbreaks that happened are so what it's. Like if I looked into the stats of it, I think in the last 20 years. It was some minuscule amount of people that actually were killed by it, and they're all immune compromised people.
Yeah.
People are very in weakened states, and then they get the E. coli. Otherwise, it's just a stomach flu.
Well, if you look at like places like India and China and all these things, they have no food safety, and people just don't die from it,
right?
Because of those. And yes, and so I reason that's the whole aspect. You want to worry about that immune compromised people, so that's why we worry about it, and so I absolutely think we do. But if you have a kid
still important, but
that's got that's healthy, I think you should take them to a farm and kick them in a mud puddle for a few days to give them that good. I mean, our kids eat dirt.
Yeah,
they go out and they go out and play in the chicken pen, because we want them to have that very robust, healthy immune system.
Absolutely. So I recently started listening to your new podcast, the Thriving Farmer podcast, I believe it's called.
That's it, yes.
And I've listened to a few of the episodes. Jill Salatin was the first episode, and it was an awesome one. I learned a lot of new things from him I had never heard him talk about before, actually, about his story and stuff like that. And I definitely would recommend it to you guys. I'll put a link in the description for it. Could you tell me how that kind of came about?
Yeah.
And how you're enjoying it?
Yeah, so it's actually a ton of fun because I get to interview the people I idolize and I've looked up to, and a lot of my friends that I've developed all over the U.S. and the world. One of my most fascinating ones that's coming up here shortly is Darren Doherty.
Oh, cool.
Yes.
Hello, Darren.
Agrarian's platform, like farm planning king of the world.
Yeah, absolutely.
If you haven't, he's actually doing these Rexes, these mini Rexes this year. They're none in the U.S. because he can't get really into the U.S. with the new travel policies. But if you do have a chance of going out of the U.S. and taking one of them, incredible. You'll learn so much. I learned so much.
I hope I can take a course with him someday.
Oh, yeah.
I really want to.
He is the most down-to-earth, the nicest guy you ever meet, too.
Oh, cool.
A classic Australian. But to get back to the podcast, because that was a little side note, I also realized because I don't have a large-scale farm to talk about kind of a lot of the subjects I want to talk about and show, the next best way was to just do it as a podcast. And my audience is so busy, they don't have a lot of time for video necessarily. So getting with the podcast was a great medium to reach them with.
I listen all the time when I'm harvesting or working. I can just throw a podcast in. So that's, I agree.
Yeah, so I mean, we obviously, step one is kind of what we got now, which is like interviews. And I also want to add some episodes with like maybe more focused on business and the marketing and all that kind of stuff.
Good.
So that'll be the next step. My assistant who kind of like helps me manage the business, she's like, no, Michael, you're going to, let's make sure we get the kinks worked out, get where we need to be, and then maybe season 2 you can start adding that stuff in too. So, but yeah, we got Jill Salatin, Dan Kittredge, Darren Doherty, Brian Bates is going to come on, Ray Tyler does an episode,
cool.
Some of my other mentors will do episodes as well. We got Ellen Polishuk coming on with an episode.
Nice.
So yeah, it's fabulous, and kind of where the focus of it is yeah, we're going to dive into some of the cool stuff they're doing, but I really want to talk to them about how they're running their farm, from what are the personal habits they've created to help them to their mentors, who they learned from, to their advice for new farmers, to the systems that they put in place on their farms. Because let's face it, it's not about what's a better way to grow beets necessarily. It's usually how do I manage the chaos of my farm? And so that's what I kind of really want to break into and really kind of help rewire in our brains that, you know, it's not just the latest gadget. It's usually by stepping back, looking at the 30,000-foot view and saying, you know, what am I missing here? And systematizing is where you're really going to start making your money.
Yeah, that's super, super valuable. And yeah, I think you're hitting on the right notes for farmers to really help improve our businesses and our farming systems and methods, because like the systems are what really make farming work well. I found for myself personally, and hearing other professionals do it. Yeah.
So I mean, you look at Toyota. Why was Toyota able to come in from a post-World War II economy of if you look at the research, go back and read the books about what happened there, they had nothing.
Yeah.
Absolutely nothing. And they came in, yes, right at the beginning they weren't better than Ford and Chrysler and like Chevy and all those brands, GM brands, but they so rapidly took over the market share that the U.S. car companies were left with their pants down to the point that they went to the government and asked for a bailout because they couldn't compete anymore.
Yeah, so bad.
But what they did is they systematized. They did lean, and all these things that really put it, looked at what they were doing, did a 30,000 foot, asked why. All they did was kept asking why. Is why is this breaking? And usually it wasn't, oh, because you didn't fasten the screws tight enough. It was because we had poor maintenance on the tools that we were using, which is 5 steps before the screws not being tight enough and the door, you know, jam falling off. So I think that's as farmers is so often as farmers are caught up with the busyness of getting through every single day doing blah, 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 blah. We don't have that time. And so, you know, for me, you know, when I'm starting my day as a farmer, my day started the night before with looking at how the day had gone and then planning the next day. And then usually being out an hour before my crew so that I can set my day up for the crew and for myself and be in the right frame of mind. Because, you know, I want to say, farming is so much about the mindset. If you're under the mindset that the sky's falling, the sky will fall every single day.
It does.
But if you can give yourself that mindset of, look, I'm moving forward, we're making this happen, stuff goes well. Yeah.
Absolutely. Love it, man. Wow. Thank you, Michael, for coming on. Like, I learned so much through this conversation. I hope you guys did too. If people want to learn more about you and see some of the content that you're creating, where can they go to find that? Yeah, so the best way, and it's best way to go to growingfarmers.com/free resources. Okay. And they can download our free resource bundle. Cool. And then the thrivingfarmerpodcast.com. Okay. And then our Facebook is, as of this moment, still in the field consultants. Got it. And there's a bunch of videos on there. I answer a bunch of questions. There's some farm tours and stuff. So yeah, Michael's really active on Facebook. That's a great place to reach him. And I'll put all the links for what he just talked about in the description for you guys, so you can go check out all of his awesome resources and knowledge. So yeah, thank you so much, Michael, for sitting down with me. It was so fun getting to talk to you and hang out. Thanks for reaching out. Yeah, because I said I'm hitting the West Coast. You reached out and said I'm here. Yes, come on over, man. Yeah, so this was a fabulous afternoon, and yeah, thanks so much. And I always love hanging out with farmers.